Hi guys, it's time for part 2 of my books I own from the Gilmore Girls television series for the second season. If you haven't seen my video for the first season, I'll leave that down below, but for now, let's just get into it. The first book I own from season 2 of Gilmore Girls is Personal History by Katherine Graham. In episode 2, Rory is reading this when Lorelai comes down the stairs wearing a wedding veil made out of newspaper. I have not read Personal History. The next book is The Optimist's Daughter. Rory is reading this on her bed in episode 3. I also have not read this. At the end of the same episode, Lorelai asks Rory to take Secrets of the Flesh, A Life of Colette, on their spontaneous road trip. I have not read this. Next is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. Rory is reading this book while Lorelai and Emily discuss what she bought for Lorelai and Max's wedding gifts in episode 4. I have read this and I did not particularly enjoy it. In episode 7, Rory mentions that The Sound and the Fury is her other bus book. I don't have a copy of just The Sound and the Fury, but I do have this bind up of it as well as I Lay Dying. I have read either both of these or parts of these or one or the other, I don't remember, but I'm hanging on to it to do a complete reread at some point. Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, and Richard III are all mentioned in episode 9. Rory's teacher mentions Macbeth when talking about Shakespeare. Rory's class reenacts Romeo and Juliet. And last year's class reenacted Richard III. Macbeth and Romeo and Juliet are both tragedies, and this is a complete bind-up of all of Shakespeare's tragedies. And Richard III is a history. I have read Romeo and Juliet, but I have not read Macbeth or Richard III. The next book I own is The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. Rory wants Jess to read this book. She first read it when she was 10 years old and didn't understand a single word, but she reread it when she was 15. This happens in episode 13. I have read this book and I really enjoyed it. Letters to a Young Poet by Rilke appears in episode 15. Rory buys this book at a book sale that she attends with Dean. I have not read this book. Also in episode 15, Jess stops by Rory's room to make sure she owns a copy of Franny and Zoe, or Zoe, when really he was returning her bracelet. I have not read this book. The next book that I have read but don't actually own is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Lorelai and Rory are discussing margin notes, and this book comes up in episode 18. I really enjoyed reading it. In episode 19, Jess sneaks into class and takes out a copy of Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. I have not read this book. Also in episode 19, Rory says she will read Othello to Jess while they drive to get ice cream. Othello, again, is a tragedy of Shakespeare. I have not read Othello. And lastly, I do not own, but I have read The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. In episode 21, Rory makes a joke that the next town over stoned the woman who won the lottery. I read it for high school and it was definitely interesting. So those are all the books that I either own or have read from season 2 of Gilmore Girls. Let me know how you enjoy this series and what books you have read from season 2, and stay tuned for season 3. See you later!